Bia,
Hello. How
Bia,
are you?
Beatrice Trang of the Bloom BMX.
Hmm.
I am tired, if I'm being honest. I dug
Well,
at the
hello,
trails, then I rode
Brent Moore of YouTube
of
and
BMX.
BMX.
All right, so let's just jump into this. First things first, you are one of the people who run the Bloom BMX, which is.
It's evolved. It's a platform essentially for women's BMX, and we try to cover everything from freestyle, racing, flatland, and everything in between. But it's really evolved since I've quit my job, and now we're actually able to go to these events. And I think after actually talking to Ben Holman of all people, it just kind of solidified that we're doing way more than just posting up, photos and videos. We're giving back to the community and hopefully raising the next generation of lady shredders. Yeah, in a
I,
nutshell.
I think that was a pretty good summary.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and how long have you been involved with this?
I think this is where like Angie and I were sure our like couple issues where we'll argue between like on the anniversary date. I think we're at 3 years right now. But we've been doing our own thing for I would say at least a decade at this point, with me with Magnolia BMX back in the day, and then Angie with Yazin in her day. And the funny story that I always like to tell is that after years of asking me to like work together, I finally caved in. But I think she asked me like 5 years every March because that was the only time we saw each other to work together. And I was like, no, I'm just not ready. I kind of want to do my own thing. And I just realized that together we're just a lot better. And it's really shown throughout the last couple of years how much of an impact we've made.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely would agree with that. And you are in where in Canada?
Specifically Hamilton, Ontario.
So
Um, mhm,
Angie is from where?
Buffalo. So we've known each other since we were little kids, I would say 15 and 17, because we're about 2 years apart. And there was a skate park, indoor park called X Wheels, and that's actually where we met. And we stayed connected ever since, which is pretty remarkable that one, we stayed in the scene that long, and then two, we stayed connected enough that we're now working together. And we had the kind of relationship that I would say like we trust each other with our lives too, which just makes this partnership even better.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty wild that two friends from like
Yeah.
pretty close together both like had their own thing kind of doing a similar like did that happen
Mhm.
on its own or did you both like talk about it and then create your own things? How did that even.
Well, yeah. So when I started writing, the only platform at the time was Women of Freestyle, which is Kim's baby,
Yeah.
and she did something kind of similar where I think she posted, if I remember correctly, female shredders, but she didn't do interviews with them. After a couple of years writing, I would say maybe two to be specific, like I started Magnolia BMX, and originally it was supposed to be a t-shirt company because back in the bike guide days, that's what everyone was doing is BMX t-shirt companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was like 17 at the time, that's a lot of overhead for doing new shirts all the time. So I branched out and started asking girls like Nina basic questions that I want to know, like how to do a bunny hop better. And then I would put that on the internet, and then it just kind of tumbleweed into a site with just a bunch of interviews. But it didn't really go far, like as we are right now with Bloom, with how big it is. Um, so did that for a couple years. I decided to go into like the corporate route, drop BMX, stop Magnolia BMX for a couple years, and then it was miserable. Decided to quit my job for the first time because there's been many times afterwards. And then I got reintroduced to BMX through racing.
Mm-hmm.
And racing was where I really took it to the next level. Like I trained for it, I lived racing. I did all the traveling. Like it really became my BMX. Whereas like when I first started, it was just kind of to hang out with the guys and to do something because Hampton doesn't really offer much, at least not back then.
Yeah.
Um, that's when I brought Magnolia BMX back to life. But in that time of quitting, of me working a corporate job, Angie started Yazine, and I think she started it with Nina. So it was a magazine or a zine that she took, that she had out maybe once every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And I subscribed to it too. It was great. And I think that's actually something she wants to bring back. But she wasn't updating the website as much as I was. So she
Yeah.
was resharing a lot of stuff, whereas I did a lot of original content, interviews, how-to videos and stuff. And so I came back with Magnolia. It was okay. Like, it was nice to get my juices going again with like interviews and stuff, but it wasn't going anywhere until finally I decided, you know what, it's time to work with Angie, because she brings in, I always use this analogy that Angie's like the Steve Jobs equivalent of me being the Wozniak, and together we're
Mm.
just like a solid team, because she brings in the star power and the sponsors, and then I do everything behind the scenes, and using my corporate side, actually getting more connections out, and getting more interviews done that way too, and more partnerships.
Dang, you just like answered any question that I could
I'm
ask
sorry.
about all
Well,
of it without me even
it,
having to ask.
it's a story I tell a lot, and yeah, it's a pretty sick story too. And another thing I always say too is that when we disrupt everything with X Games a couple years ago, this was two girls with like outdated broken MacBooks
Mm-hmm.
making impact, making the community actually speak up.
Yeah.
So if two girls can do this, anyone can make a difference in BMX or in anything that they care about. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just using this current live stream we're in as a perfect example, this is literally happening with stuff that just like I already had, and I just
yeah.
threw it all together and it looks like a professional, like produced
Hmm.
thing. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's the best things that have ever existed have come from DIY and just making it happen. I mean,
Yeah.
you always hear the whole Amazon thing of like it being a book buying or book renting website or whatever out of
Yeah.
somebody's garage. Like,
It was uh, Bezos's garage, and he was just doing books at the time. That's where it all started. And actually, it reminds me of even our conversations, because I thought about going back to film school because I really want to get better
hmm,
at it. But really, you don't have to.
no, no, you
I
don't.
no, I've learned so much through you, and then just through YouTube and being hands-on. That was so important. But yeah, I mean, I've I'm so stoked with like what I've learned so far from just a short amount of time, to actually throwing myself into it.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
this conversation of like DIY and doing things purely because you want a specific result and you have to
Hmm.
figure out how to do it is like something that anybody could benefit from hearing. In the video that I posted today was a video talking about why skate parks are good for local communities. And in
Hmm.
that, like, I made the connection between BMX and the career that I have. And I actually am curious if any of your corporate business background came from like the BMX world of like you're running a t-shirt, you were trying to start a t-shirt company, then it evolves into a website, and then you're
Yeah.
now be a business stuff. Is that a like conscious decision?
That's a really good question. I would say that growing up, seeing my mom and dad being entrepreneurs themselves kind of gave me a pathway to running my own business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna say like I know everything about business, like tax stuff. Like I got a friend who does that for me. But I would say that it's given me kind of a different perspective on how to run things, and how to, um, I guess, sell a shirt, or
Mm.
to promote something a little bit differently, with like, especially as a girl too, like we've got a different perspective on how we can push like a promotion, I suppose.
Yeah.
um but because of that beginning, and then also making mistakes and learning along the way with my little t-shirt company when I was younger, it's also helped me become like a superstar at every corporate job I've had, which also made me bored of it, and then I move on, and I think I've quit 3 jobs since to move on to something else, and it's been completely worth it. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
I just think I think so because it kind of points in the direction that like BMX and your
Mm.
family kind of steered you towards the route that you took for like your professional career before you just randomly quit all of that for the Bloom?
Well, and then all the corporate jobs over the last, I don't know how long I've been working, maybe at least 10 years at this point in the corporate setting. It's helped me become, I think, a better contact for
Mm-hmm.
what BMX is typically used to. Because how often are we joking like, man, I didn't get my order yet. Of course, it's because like a BMXer is running this company or something like that. I've heard that joke so many times, but I feel like because I've come from like American Express and like a healthcare company and like another corporate company before that, like I am quick, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing on emails, and I'm more like precise and straightforward with what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then customer service wise, like if we have like a little store as well, and if the order is late, like I know how to respond to that. I'm quick on it. I don't let the customers wait for like
Mm-hmm.
a week or two to just get an answer. So there's a sense of urgency when I'm taking care of things.
And now you have even more time, but probably even less time than you had
I
before.
Yeah, so for I think in the last or the first 2 years, like I was able to manage a full-time job and the Bloom, and I would just like post things on my lunch break or during my like two breaks out of the day, and it was getting by. But that Vans trip in March of just this year, which is crazy. So this everything that's happened, that's changed in my life, just happened in March, but that trip just kind of catapulted things. I came home to like meetings after meetings with various brands who want to collaborate with us that we're still working with. Um, and it got to the point where, well, Angie's a full time athlete. She can
Mm-hmm.
only take on so much.
Yeah.
I can only take on so much working an 8-hour job. And I was finding myself having meetings in my car. And I just started to recognize that, like, I feel more fulfilled making less money doing what I want to do than working for somebody. And
Mm-hmm.
I will say my last job, I loved it. It gave me some outlets for creativity, but I was also working with one individual that was a complete idiot, and it just started to, it just started to weigh on me that like all I want for this company, and I apply this to everything that I do. All I want is the best for this company, and this company can't be the best with this incompetent employee. And I just decided after a bit of a blow up at work for like a different reason that was related to this individual that it was time to walk. And I had
Yeah.
been talking about doing it was my dream as a kid when like I was doing Magnolia BMX that like I would make this a full-time thing. A lot of my inspirations actually came from Ryan Fudger because like when I started writing, he was like that guy, you know, and he is still that guy. The guy who is traveling, writing, doing write-ups, doing edits, and probably miserable in his hotel, but he gets to like travel and record BMX and be in one of the most amazing cultures I think that exists. So I just didn't think that even now that I've somehow manifested this to come true. So yeah,
Well,
all kind of happened.
it
Yeah.
all pointed to one final result, and that was
Hmm.
getting to where you're at right now. One thing that I'm curious about just hearing you talk about this is like, what are some of the examples of like direct impacts on people and BMX as a whole that you think
Hmm.
have come from the Bloom just in like the period of time that led up to you doing it full time?
Well, I mean, even before this year, I remember the first year that we did the Bloom Awards. I think it was Colin from Vans who contacted me and was like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know this girl who's from Japan and is a rock star flatlander existed. And if it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't for us posting her, they wouldn't have ended up hooking her up. And now she's like rocking Vans all the time."
Yeah.
That's the first memory of making an impact. But honestly, at this point, to even express how much we've done, and it's so hard not to come off like I'm tuning my own horn, but we
I'm asking you to do that, so it's okay.
well, I mean, I'm constantly looking for ways to elevate certain female riders. Like if I have an opportunity to pluck this girl from like the UK or Brazil and bring her to North America and to break through and get her hooked up even more, I'm going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I really do feel like, obviously, with BMX coming from California, like for you to really excel worldwide, you gotta break through to the US.
Hmm.
So, with that said, I specifically have plucked Duda from Brazil so that she can join us at Bloom Week, and I want to do content with her to just help her grow even more. She's huge in Brazil,
Yeah.
but I really want her to be known here as well because she's an amazing person and she's got a bright future. Um, but other examples, I I don't know. I don't know. There's just so many that I can't even like pinpoint. But I think the Japan girl was the first one. Any girl that gets hooked up because of our exposure is always a win. And I think confidently I can say that there are a lot of companies looking to us for that referral as well. And actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but a certain rider got hooked up by a drink sponsor partly because of the research that they did through our website.
Nice.
And when they told us that was like, wow, that's a pretty big deal. So
Yeah.
that's a good, certification check
Is
mark.
that a paying drink sponsor?
It is.
So you're
Yeah.
legitimately like changing somebody's life by them making money and being able to even further support
Yeah.
themselves.
And the reality is there's not a lot of, if a company's going to do some research, the reality is there's not a lot of options out there.
Right.
I think we are the best source. We're also not biased by any means as well. Like,
Hmm.
I just want to get the truth out and fix some like spelling grammar issues, and that's about it. But other than that, other than that, I'm just always constantly looking for opportunities to show off all the awesome girls that are around the world. Like, there's a girl right now, her name's Iveta from the Czech Republic, and I met her the first time in France, and she was doing like, is it cannonball? Is that the trick that
Double
we,
seat grab, no footer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This girl's like freaking 16 years old. She's got like cool swagger, just like exerting out of her body. And she's from the Czech Republic. And that's a growing BMX scene. And yeah, and outside of the women's space too, the other thing I'm looking at right now is like even my not home country because it's born in Canada, but my parents' home country, like Vietnam, just seeing how the BMX scene is growing there. And I'm actually working on a proposal right now to hopefully do a trip out there because Trang did a trip in 2015, and BMX has only exploded since. It's still very street dominant. There's not a lot of like parks or anything, but that concrete bowl in the jungle still exists. So be a cool trip.
Yeah. A cool trip.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just always, I think, and we talked about this before, like, if your purpose in business is to help people, you can't lose. And
Right.
that's how I kind of operate.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And one thing that I want to say about all the stuff you just said is that we got to make Bethany pro.
Yeah. She is coming up to Vans Pro Cup. Oh, sorry. No, not Vans Pro Cup, Waffle Cup next week.
Gotcha.
And that's in Huntington Beach. So she mentioned that she's going to try to do some more UCI stuff next year. And yeah, there's, I think, an interview coming out with her shortly as well with us. So
good. Very good. She's amazing. And
she is.
One thing that I think is so cool that happens, like, it seems like all the time at this point, is that there's just this like a random lay shredders who are just popping up that you see get posted on Instagram, and you're like, who is this and what? Like, some of the people out there, one that obviously is like way bigger than I ever realized, but I randomly saw her not that long ago. Is it Aubrey Time? Is that a name?
Yeah.
She's I don't know how old she is, but she's doing like hard 180s and 180 bar spins off of stuff, hard 180s out of grinds, and like tricks that are like genuinely really difficult to do.
Yeah.
And how old is she? Like 11, 10,
I
something?
actually don't know. I almost want to say 9, but I might be incorrect. But her dad is amazing, and I think that's a part of why she's so well. No, it's a big reason why she's so successful that she's
She's
got that
9.
support. She is.
She's 9.
Yeah, she's 9 years old. Can you imagine her in like just a few more years? What else she could do?
It's incredible, and I had no idea. By the time I had saw her riding, she's already like blown up on Instagram and
Oh
all
yeah,
over the place. But like, I just clicked on a couple of videos, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then it just randomly other people keep popping up. There's one that keeps getting posted. I don't remember the name, but she randomly popped up recently too, and it's cool. That Linda,
yep.
uh,
Grabner.
she came out of what seemed like nowhere and instantly just like boom, pro rider.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the first time I saw her in the internet space was through an interview that she did on YouTube, and that was my first time.
mhm.
And the reason why she kind of came out of nowhere is because she's only been riding for like a year or something.
What?
Yeah, like hopefully my memory game is right, but I definitely less than 3 years.
We're okay to be wrong. We're just two people talking online.
But yeah, Linda's been riding for a very short time. Um, Super stoked that she got hooked up by Vans. She killed it on the Vans Bloom trip as
Kink
well.
too, I think.
Yeah,
I think
Kink? No, she's on We the People.
that one. Whatever.
Yeah,
Still riding for a bike company. Like,
Kink
it's
has
amazing.
a night,
Yeah.
and she's killing it too.
Yeah,
For
that was
sure.
another one, and like, it it just makes you wonder because women's BMX is something that like even you guys and everything you're doing, I feel like you
Mhm.
probably haven't fully scratched the surface
Oh
of
no,
like everything yet. So there's
no.
more people out there who are just gonna keep popping up, and you're like, oh my god, this she's insane. She's doing crazy stuff.
Literally a month ago, and she was like, "Dude, there's a new girl in Greece, and she's doing like 180s off like a ledge,
Yeah.
like a high ledge." So like,
Mhm.
yeah, the one thing that really helps with this growth is social media.
The internet.
Yeah, and yeah, when I first started writing, I think the most we had was like MySpace, and it wasn't really as easy to like come across randomly a girl.
What do you
I
mean?
really just dated myself right
You
now.
couldn't make a, what was it? What do they call it? When you posted something, it was, I can't remember what it was called now. It would show up on the lower left hand side, and there'd be a list of all of the posts, and people would put W for W, like
W for W.
whore for whore, where you're posting someone else's
Oh,
stuff, like trying to
no,
get
I don't remember that part.
what.
I yeah.
Either way, you weren't doing that. I was doing
No.
that.
Well, I think Magnolia BMX back then was still kind of trying to find its like identity. I was
Hmm.
really mixed between like, is this a t-shirt company or is this like an interview company? The word media company wasn't in my head right now
Mm.
then, but the Bloom BMX is a media company
Yeah.
essentially, but on crack because we do other stuff as well. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of also, you mentioned when you first started, I just love whenever I was talking to Nina, and she
Uh-huh.
said that when she first started, when I asked who she looked up to when she first started, she said that she would just pretend like the dudes with long hairs were chicks.
Yeah.
Because like when Nina started, there wasn't that many at all.
No, she's the OG. Like her, so Nina, Stacy Mulligan, and Corey Coffrey, they were the OG. They were the OG in the sense that like, the only female pros that like got to travel enough that you can like see them and
Hmm.
see that they're real people.
Yeah.
Before the times of like Twitter and MySpace and all that stuff. But I'm sure there were other girls that rode like in the UK too. There was this one girl that she was the first to do a bar spin that was recorded. So there was
Wow.
probably a lot more that we just didn't like get to see. But her name was Carla White, I think.
Crazy stuff to
Yeah.
even just talk about. I mean, I remember when I first started riding, I remember on MySpace, and I don't know
Mhm.
how to ever figure out who this is, but I think it was pictures from, I don't even want to take a guess at it, but there was somebody who's riding a
Okay.
pink bike, and like there's pictures jumping a box jump, and I'm like, who the hell is like doing like, I think might have even been like suicides and stuff, and I don't know if it was Nina, but I don't
It,
know.
Nina does them, so it could have been.
Either
I
way,
don't know if she's ever had a pink bike though,
yeah,
but
I have
there,
no
yeah,
idea. This was like a long time ago. I was just
yeah.
googling Stacy Mulligan's name to see if somehow that could be
I
it.
was I was talking to her about her. I forget with who the other day. Maybe it was you. I'm not sure. But the first time I saw a female BMXer ride was in Toronto at Metro Jam back
Mm-hmm.
when Jay Maron did it, or ran it, and it was like still to this day probably the best Canadian competition ever put on. It was like simple session vibes with Canadian and lots of underage drinking. Um, but she was one of the few riders who double pegged one of the subs there. It was like quarter, super tall sub, like skinny on top, and I just remember her like trying it over and over. She got so closer in practice, and she just freaking nailed it during her run. It was
Yeah.
amazing. And there were guys that were like, "I can't believe she did that. That's scary for me." And like that just made the whole experience of seeing a female rider for the first time that more badass.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Hmm.
Uh, some of the stuff that Bethany does, I feel that way about it. Like when we
Yeah.
played that game of Bike at Ray's, and she'd
Yeah.
never done a sub box double peg out of a quarter pipe before. I'm like, if you do this right now, you can win. I told her we could do it on the smaller one. She's like, nope, we're doing this one. And she did it.
Yeah, I would love to see her get into some international competitions just to push her over a little bit, like, get that extra level up because I think right now she's kind of limited because
Hmm.
there's no one in her age group. And yeah, you kind of have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position to excel more, but she's got a lot of potential. She's super young, and I really think that she's got like a very likely chance to be on the Olympic team. I just can't think of anyone else. Like she would be it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. And speaking of the Olympics,
Yes.
being that you've run the Bloom before the Olympics and after the Olympics, have you
And
seen a direct result or impact from it on?
yeah, yeah, for sure. Firstly, I'm pretty sure we were the only media source that actually had updated photos. Granted, we only covered the females, but thanks to Naoki, who was on site, she was able to get us the photos right away. We had other media companies hit us up and was asking us to connect with her, and well, one, she was busy, but like two, like these photos are for us as well.
Yeah.
But we've seen an increase commercially. Like we've had a bunch of like advertising and agency, TV agency companies like reach out to us to connect us with like this type of girl in this like state and for this job. And overall, we've just been getting more attention and traffic to the website as well. And we're also seeing a lot more girls get into the sport too.
Mm.
Like that was an incredibly epic time. Um,
Yeah.
Not only did we see everything that a TV producer wanted to see, the drama, the action, all that stuff, but we saw an upset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
which
word for
which
it.
which was heavy for me as a viewer because I've seen Hannah grow up from a little wee thing
Hmm.
to now this like amazing woman. But um, it was a really epic moment for BMX, and I've heard it before, and I totally agree with it. But the women stole the show.
Yeah.
I love watching the guys ride, but I mean, there was just everything you could hope for um, in the women's class.
I feel like that will probably be the case for a lot of things moving forward, just
Hmm.
because when it comes to the guys, you pretty much know what's going to happen. You
Yeah.
like it's not very often that something new is brought out in any kind of contest other than maybe like the big air stuff at X Games where like R. Willie can bring some crazy trick he's inventing because how many other people are even inventing tricks right now?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it's just a lot of stuff has been done, but when you look at like the Olympics and you got Charlotte throwing out 360 backflips and front flipping something like it was totally unexpected, and there's just only more and more of that can happen.
I even though like obviously if you drop a foot that's like 30 points off of your run,
Hmm.
I feel that with the guys right now, and I apologize if I offend anyone, but it's at this point, these guys have so many tricks under their belt. It's about making it smooth and refined and almost robotic
It's
and
figure
perfect.
skating.
Yeah,
It's
which is
literally figure skating.
totally respectable and like completely difficult to do as well, to make it look like if you're doing a tail whip that suddenly your feet are like magnets to your pedals, right?
Yeah.
But with the girls right now, I think, you know, especially at the Olympics, you know, I, Charlotte had this one chance, she sent it. It was risk it all or get nothing.
Yep.
And that's what we saw. And I think that's
Put
what
it
made
all
it
on red.
exciting. Yeah, there's more reward for risk for the women at this point
Hmm.
than it is for men. Um, yeah, that's my take on it.
And it's like you said, not a knock against the dudes. It's not a knock against the dudes whatsoever, because they are
Hmm.
at the mercy of how they're being judged. And I
Hmm.
think, and I've had this criticism for a while now, it's just that the way BMX contests are judged leads to the type of riding that happens and the limited amount of things that happen
Hmm.
in those contests. And if things don't change as the future progresses, women's BMX is going to end up exactly the same way, because
It
it's the
likely
only
will. Yeah.
result,
Hmm.
unless we can figure out a way to get them to change judging so that we can end up with an Olympics that looks like Toronto Jam with people sending it across the course.
I just don't see that happening with the Olympics, though, because if you look at any other sport discipline, whether it's skating, whatever else that's performance based,
Yeah.
artistically performance based,
Yeah, it'll never happen.
you can have like a group of people who can do all the same tricks, but the person that goes the highest or goes the smoothest or is able to go from one trick to another just without any flaws, like that's the guy that's going to win.
Yeah.
Women's BMX is going to be in that direction as well, where we always follow the guys. So it's nothing that it's going to be surprising when that happens.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
unless too it becomes a case of it's recognized from the beginning, and women
Mhm.
don't all decide to gravitate towards the exact same tricks, because there are people like Dennis Anderson and Boyd Hilder and even
Mhm.
Daniel Dares. Daniel Dares
Mhm.
is doing some different tricks. He did a 720 can tire grab, like
Yeah.
over the craziest spine ever. So like there's definitely variety, and if it does, like, it doesn't have to go to that path, but it could. Either way, it doesn't matter right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's cool to see it all happening, because it's like the people who are older than even you and I got
Mhm.
to live the progression of BMX, and we're living in progression right now, but in a
Mhm.
different way. And
Yeah.
the women's side of BMX is kind of going through that, so it's cool to like see it.
I I think I started riding or getting into BMX during like the mid school era, and I think that women's BMX right now is either in the equivalent of that or just heading out of that direction, because we're just there's been a shift recently since the Olympics. But kind of circle back, but what I have noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm seeing a lot of riders kind of reflecting their coach now. And it's
Mm.
kind of interesting to see that. So if you think about like any rider, who their coach is, you kind of start seeing some similarities. But the only person I think I haven't seen that similarity, and I still see her like uniqueness, is Charlotte, because she doesn't really reflect Jamie. I think Jamie allows her to be her own person and
Hmm.
lets her like do her own thing. But there are other riders. I'm like, that coach trick, you know?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like you got Daniel Dares out there who like doesn't need a coach,
No,
and
he is his own man.
he
Yeah.
just knows what to do because he's been competing for so long. I think honestly, aside from Charlotte getting that upset and just being like a shock of just holy crap that happened, that's insane. I think Daniel Dare's getting second was the thing I was the most stoked about from the Olympics. Just I'm like, this dude's 36 years old,
I
competing in the
know.
Olympics, gets
Hmm.
second, and not only did he get second, but like had to put it all on the line, similar to Charlotte,
Yeah.
to make it happen because he was not in second up until his last and second run.
I don't know how he does it because like I got friends who are like 33 like I am, and they're complaining about not being able to ride anytime soon because they're still sore from the last session. But this guy is just still setting himself out all the time.
I think that probably has a lot to do with your activities outside of riding too.
Very true, very true. But yeah, it's good to know that there's still someone older that's like at his peak and he's still up there and he's still progressing. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, but even I was just talking today with the guy who owns the trails that I ride at.
Yeah.
We talked about Nyquist, and he's like, I watched Nyquist when I was a kid, and he's like the only person who I watched as a kid, and then he corrected himself, not the only person who still rides, but like the only one who is still like at the peak of their riding and
Yep.
competing at a professional level, and it's
And he's
wild
like
to see.
43, I think,
Yeah, it's
now.
crazy.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's good to know that you know, it's not like you have to put a time cap on your riding career. You can keep doing this as long as you want to, as long as you like take care of your body. Because Ryan, like I follow him, like he's like up at like 5 a.m. doing like cycling classes with his wife and stuff. Like he takes care of his
Jeez.
body for the longevity of it.
Right, and
Yeah.
as the sooner you recognize that, the better. Same
Hmm.
time too, there's a guy on YouTube. His name is Mendo. He's from
Okay.
Russia, and he might be older now, but at the time that his video came out, he was 68 years old and didn't start riding until he was 62. He's doing
That's amazing.
yeah, he's doing foot jams, air to fakies, fly out 360s. Like he's riding well, and he didn't start until he was in his 60s.
I gotta check that out. And that's a good thing to show anyone who's like, I'm this old. Is it too late to start BMX? It's not, because it
Nope.
depends. If your goal is to like get into BMX and be a pro, like first of all, that's like the wrong mindset for it. It kind of goes back to like doing what you love and making sure that for me, it's like giving back to community and doing something for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But if you feel like you're too old to compete, or to ride, you gotta look at it like, why are you already like measuring yourself to like other people who are in their prime and have been riding for like 20 years? Because I've spoken to women that like want to get into the sport, but then they deter themselves because they're already comparing themselves to like these people who've already been riding for like 10 years plus.
Yeah, you
Um,
don't get old until you quit. When you slow
mhm.
down in life, that's when you start getting old. But the
Yeah.
cool thing is that we've learned in the past, recent history, that you can kind of like reverse that a little bit by
Mhm.
becoming active and just working out and riding and
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And it's also pretty interesting too that like, so there was the original like girl BMX rider who was like the first pro women rider. I
Hmm.
can't remember her name, but she was like years before Nina, like
A
way,
racer.
yeah, like way, way, way long time ago. But
Okay.
aside from that, Nina and Corey and maybe some others that I just don't know,
Hmm.
like there's not as many older women riders yet. So
Yes.
it's also cool to see that. I mean, I tell people all the time that like we don't know how old someone can be and still be riding freestyle BMX because one, it wasn't started until like people like Dave Volker and all these guys and Bob Harrow, like
Hmm.
these guys aren't dead yet. They're not 100 years old, and we're not talking about them in the past tense. Like the amount of people who could be old in riding is way smaller unless you started later in life.
I think that's a good perspective. Like BMX freestyle is still a really young sport. I mean, it's kind of weird to see like kids riding at the age that there are now, and knowing that like, I was here at this time when you were born,
Hmm.
and you're killing it on BMX right now.
Yeah,
Or seeing generations of riders. Like, I didn't know that Kevin Peraz's dad was a rider, and that's how he got into it. Like, that's really cool to see that. Like, you're seeing generations of BMX experience being passed down. Like, Aubrey's dad is a BMXer.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a few of them. I mean, Brock Rayford is one.
Hmm.
What's his face? Justin Spreet. His
Hmm.
dad rides as well, or did ride. I don't know the current status, but yeah, like we just don't know, and I think
Yeah.
that's really a cool thing to think about
Hmm.
in all of it.
Yeah. It's cool just that it's becoming more accepted, because like when I started riding, it was a hooligans activity, you know.
Hmm.
We had to fight our way to get into skate parks because it was skate only, and
Yeah,
I mean, still like that these days, anyways. But yeah, definitely a different time.
yeah, it's pretty. I think it's cool to see where things are at, and you talked about how you see like these kids who are riding and doing things, and compared to like where you were at that age. It's funny because I use that whenever new kids come around in my local area to see like
Mhm.
to see where they're at when they're riding, and like compare, okay, so like I was doing this when I was this age and they're doing it at this age, and so like they could potentially get to be like incredible and whatever based
Yeah.
on that. I love that type of stuff, and just thinking about those things.
It makes you feel a little bit smaller too, but in a like good way. Like it's just understanding that the world is so much bigger, and um, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
uh Coming back to the Bloom stuff,
Okay.
you quit your job, you're doing the Bloom full time.
Hmm.
I know that we talked before you actually quit your job, and you were nervous as hell. How you
Um,
feeling?
Good, great. Yeah, I can't really describe how intensely anxious I was making the decision. I spoke to my therapist. I spoke to like five, six different people, and it all boiled down to, if I don't do this, it would be a disservice.
Yeah.
It'd be a disservice to me. It would be a disservice to Angie. It'd be a disservice to the community, and that I had to do it. And my therapist actually said that, and that was the point where I was like, well, let's send it, because as someone else also said, I can easily get another 9 to 5 job
Yeah.
if this doesn't work out. Definitely highly capable of doing the same thing again, climbing up the corporate ladder and like
Mm.
getting to the highest level and then getting bored again. I can easily do that again.
Yeah.
But I definitely had a lot of self doubt. I had a lot of just non confident thoughts, like, what if I'm too old to get a new job at this point?
Too old to get a new
Yeah,
job.
I don't know if I can learn another
You were just
program at this
making
point.
stuff up in your head.
I was. That's where anxiety is. But yeah, when I finally sent so there was an incident at work that really upset me, and it just made me realize that no matter how much I do for this company, they're always going to, for some reason, protect this individual that's a complete idiot,
Mm-hmm.
and this company will not progress, despite all my good intentions, despite all the money I'm bringing into it. Um, and then so that thing happened. Um, Took the weekend to think about it, while everything is also building up for the Bloom as well. And I wrote my, I said, what was it called? Not the pink slip, resignation letter.
Put your
Had
two
it
weeks
saved.
in.
Yeah, I sent it to myself. I saved it in my work folder, and then Monday I came in. I was expecting an apology for my manager, didn't get it, and then I just sent it. I just sent it. I
Did you
felt
send it
relief.
with your middle finger?
No, I mean, for dramatic reasons, I should have. But yeah, I sent the email, and I felt relief, like excitement. I don't think, I think I had one moment of like, no, actually, I don't think I had any regrets doing that. I was pretty confident. And then I messaged Angie right away to let her know.
Yeah.
She sent me like the party emojis, and yeah, even I spoke to so many people before just to like go through the thoughts of like
Yeah.
becoming a freelancer and like doing this full time. And um, I one of the moments that kind of made me realize that I needed to do this was that I spent 2 weeks in California for bands, the band's Bloom tour,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no way that I could get another 8 weeks off because of all the
Oh,
stuff that's
yeah.
coming up. And I felt nervous even thinking about it, but I would have to talk to my boss and negotiate stuff, and I just realized it wasn't worth it. And that I just had to keep repeating to myself that it's going to work out. And even Chris Fox, I like spoke to him a little bit as well. And he said, money's going to come and go. And that's something you're worried about. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And everything's been fine since. I've been lucky to have a lot of my travel expenses paid for all the things I've been doing. And then just to get by, like I'm doing some pretty cool like freelancing stuff with like social media management.
Mm-hmm.
We live in an amazing time right now where like you can do this kind of stuff, and there's so many more industries that you can tap into and still live your life and do Bloom, or for me doing the Bloom and do what I want.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been great ever since. And so many people talk about doing this all the time, like I did for like 15 years,
Yep.
and I still cannot believe I actually did it.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. Yeah.
There's a lot of those stories, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
the I wish I did it stories. That's
Yeah.
that's why I never like even attempted to find a full-time job again after
Well,
my
you've got a good
situation.
setup right now with like being able to work at home
Mm-hmm.
and do what you want to do. Eventually, one day you'll realize that okay, what the Brett Moore empire is getting a lot busier, so you're gonna have to like make some decisions.
Yeah, it's
Um,
getting there one day though.
yeah.
I'm
Uh,
definitely trying to hold out as long as possible, just because the double income from that, like for as long as humanly possible, is going to be nice to have.
that was actually one of the advice that was given to me is that if I can keep doing both as long as I can, that it's good because you're not in a situation where you have to be forced to make a decision
Mm-hmm.
because of finances. And I was planning to stay as long as I could, but the thing that blew up at work just kind of put me over the edge, and I was like, "F this."
Yeah.
So yeah, um,
It's funny that you had to get guilted into it by your therapist. If you don't do this, it's a disservice to BMX.
she said it more harshly, but like not in like a aggressive way or anything. But I forget her specific wording. But it was a lot of people who made me realize that I'm going to be missing out on a really big opportunity. And to be honest, like every event that I've gone to since the Vans trip, it's allowed us to have more access to other opportunities and advertising am I making the same amount as I did before? No. Was I nervous about it? Did I have like crazy goals? Like I gotta make this much to justify me quitting my job. Yes, I had those thoughts, but you get used to it. And I'm getting by like just fine. Like I'm able to feed myself. Like I moved back home just to make this work. Um, and everything's been good.
Yeah.
Do I think this is long term? I hope it is, but if it's not, then at least I can like die and not. I mean, this is what I've been telling people too. Like I I think Steve Jobs had a quote saying something like, "If you wake up and you look in the mirror and you're not happy or something, you need to reevaluate your life." And that's kind of what I did. It was just if I got into a car accident the next day and I was on my like last breath, and would I have any regrets? I would definitely have them if I were still working my corporate job and not pursuing this. And at least I can say now that if I something happened, I could say I took the leap and it's been completely worth it, and been loads of fun, and I've got to like meet a bunch of new people too in the process.
Yep. I'm pulling
Mm.
up the Steve Jobs quote right now to
Can
throw
you
it
find
in.
it?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to find.
Yeah, there's so many of them. I know it's so cheesy, but it's um, these quotes are also coming from like people who've made a difference in the world too. So I mean, I think they know a thing or two.
Yeah, absolutely. says, for the past 33 years, I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the
That's
answer
it.
has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something.
It's been no for like 15 years for me of working,
I
but I stuck with it.
I think that there's a lot of people in this world who would answer no to that as they go into work. And I think that there's a lot of people who are unfortunately stuck in that position and literally cannot get out. They've got too many kids that they have to support to be able to like not make as much money as they are. They've
A
got
miserable wife, or like, yeah, there's so many factors
they
for sure.
screwed themselves by buying the wrong car with too high of a payment, or
Yeah.
some kind of crazy situation, or whatever this thing might be that prevents people from following their dreams. And when you're able to follow your dreams and try to make what you would love to do in life happen, it's something that you should do. I don't
Yeah.
I don't
I
necessarily agree with Gary Vee saying quit your job.
Oh, did he say that?
He
Oh my
just
God.
says that all the time as like a
I don't
thing, like
follow
quit your
him.
job.
Yeah, I don't follow him, but my last boss loves him,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize that, but that's pretty funny. My last boss though, he it was hard, I think, on him to see me go, because I, like, as like one of his like number one employees, like he tried to
Mm.
keep me, but he also, as an entrepreneur, knew how important this was to take this leap. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool to have his support in it. Um, but yeah, I will say that I'm fortunate enough that I don't have kids. I don't have a boyfriend or a husband. I ended up actually in December of last year not planning to leave my job by any means, but I just wanted to save more money, moved out of my condo, and moved back home,
Yeah.
with the possibility of just opening myself up just in case I decide to take a leap. So of course there are sacrifices on my end, but I'm not saying that if you got kids or something to like ditch them to follow your dreams. But I'm definitely lucky in that case that things lined up for me.
Yeah. I mean, you
Mhm.
could keep the whole cliche quote thing going just by the one that people put from The Rock. What is that? I'm gonna pull that one up too because why not? Yeah, this is a good one. We gotta find a really good picture from it. I don't know if he actually said this or not, but
Hmm.
it's good. It's good. We'll just
Yeah.
put it that way. It says, "Don't work 8 hours for a company, then go home and not work on your own goals. You're not tired. You're uninspired."
That's a big
That's
one.
It's definitely a thing, and we all know people who go home after their full-time job and work on their dreams, trying to make
Yeah.
things happen.
I definitely know people like that, and yeah, I was one of them as well. And it was weird because like you think coming home after 8 hours working in an office to doing more stuff for your computer would actually exhaust you more, but
Yeah.
I I got to do my own thing. I felt actually energetic, but it got to the point where like, oh boy, I was doing Bloom stuff at work, on my break and on lunch.
And at work, you're not in work anymore. You can say you were doing
No,
it
no,
on the
no,
clock.
no. I
Don't
was
lie. You know you
no, I'm
did.
not. I was an
Not
a
one time
A
ever.
plus. No, never. No, no,
I don't believe you.
no. 15-minute breaks twice a day and my lunch. That was when I did Bloom stuff. But when
I
I was
guarantee
working,
you did it in the bathroom at least once.
yes.
Ah, on the clock.
You're allowed to go pee, okay? But no, I mean, I specifically made sure that like my work time was my work time, and
Yeah.
I put everything in, and then Bloom time was Bloom time. But yeah, I also realized too that like if I can put this much effort into someone else's dream, I should do this for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've yet to really hit that peak yet with what I'm doing, and I've recognized that recently with just when you finally get your own like life together with like your own job, or not your own job, but like you're doing your own thing.
Yeah.
I found for me that I was not good with time management, even though I was great at it at work, because at work they give you a rubric, they give you an
Mm-hmm.
outline of like what you need to achieve, what you need to hit, your numbers and all that. I didn't have that with the Bloom, so I'm slowly developing that to keep myself um, on point with what my goals are with it. And then yeah, but it's only been a couple of months, but it's a learning process, learning more about myself. Yeah.
You're turning it into a legitimate, like, real serious business.
Trying to, yeah.
You're
I
taking it
mean,
from like what was done in your spare time to what is your full time.
yeah. Actually, yeah, that's kind of crazy. I hope it becomes one of those like garage stories that you always hear. But I with the conversations that we're having with brands right now, like I have to be that person. I have to put the corporate hat on
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that we're delivering what they want. And for me, going beyond of what their expectations are. So yeah, and that was instilled in me from when I was working at Amex, and like pretty cool job. I got to like service the 1% of the world. So if you have a platinum card or a Centurion card, which is the black card, I was the concierge for it. And then the training for that was super intense because we have to really not only create a relationship right away, but like going beyond the service and a call of duty. And that's what I'm trying to bring into BMX right now with what we're doing.
That is definitely something that BMX needs. Because, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's not saying, not trying to like shit on it or anything, but like, there's, there's definitely, when you look at certain pro riders and you see the sense of professionalism that they have, and then
Hmm.
when you look at other people and you're like, oh, this person just wants to ride their bike and
Yeah.
that's all they care about doing. That's all they want to do. But in the day and age we live in, you can no longer just be good at riding your bike and be a pro BMX rider.
Yeah. I mean, obviously depends what your goals are, but like you can be a pro rider and be unrefined a little bit and still be loved and like, all that stuff. But it's the rider that like takes that extra step to smile and wave at the podium and take photos with kids and make conversations. That's the pro that not only makes lifelong memories for these kids and next generation riders, but they're also making their sponsors look really good
And
and
that's the point.
keep them paid longer. Yeah.
You are, whether you like it or not, if you are getting paid to ride your bike, you are a billboard for a company. And
Hmm.
it's pretty easy to get a new billboard if the print is falling off of the previous one. You can put it that
As,
way.
especially in this day and age, and like to add on it too as well, like you also have to be you have to have the full package. The friendliness, the markability, like it's it can be easily found, I think, through another rider, but if you can make yourself a little bit different and going that extra step, it's you get to keep that position a little bit longer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100,000%. And
Mhm.
what's so cool about the age of the internet is that people don't necessarily have to rely on companies within BMX or like things within BMX to make it as a rider.
Hmm.
Like,
Yep.
there's avenues like YouTube, and now freaking Instagram is kind of crazy. TikTok is wild too, with like make how much money you can make if you do things correctly just through
I
Instagram and TikTok.
I'm still trying to figure that out because we just got TikTok for Bloom and it's like doing okay, but I feel like it could do better. I just haven't figured out the algorithms and like all that stuff, but that's a part of like I have to learn that because of my other positions and my other clients as well. But there's that and commercially as well. Um, I've had in the last year since the Olympics, there's been more of a demand for BMX specific advertising needs. Even in Canada, we had last year, they were looking for a dad and a daughter to ride down a ramp for a CAA commercial, which is the equivalent of AAA in the States.
Okay.
And then before the Olympics, there was an uptick as well. We had a company reach out to us looking for like a female rider for a pop company that was going to be commercial in Colombia, but they wanted to shoot in California. So, yeah, so definitely BMX has a lot of opportunities. Is it still the highest paying sport?
No.
It's getting there. I was trying to be nice about it.
It's not even getting there.
No, I think you gotta hustle outside of BMX, but still be on your BMX to make money, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And to combat the purists out there who would be like, oh, you should just ride for fun and whatever. Okay, then don't be a pro BMX rider.
Okay, so I would love to talk about that because I was talking to a pro at Woodward about that, and I feel that that's a really shitty way to like express your jealousy. I'm sorry, but
you're absolutely right.
I mean, I think when we get to riding, I think we can fairly say that when we and even right now as an adult, how sick would it be to be able to ride your bike, not have to worry about your bills because you're getting paid by your sponsors? Why is that a bad thing? And also, you know, when Joe from the other cubicle gets a raise or a promotion, and everyone's clapping, there's cake, there's like confetti, and then maybe some hot dogs or something like that. There's a celebration. But when BMX happens, where it happens in BMX, I just feel like there's always that like, oh, he's selling out now, or you know, riding mountain bikes, like people get shit on that. Like, do
you want to know what it is? Do you want to know what it really is?
What?
It's it's that, and it's also a sense of self-entitlement that your personal beliefs and views should matter more than the person who's doing it.
Okay, let's dive deep into that.
Let me expand.
Okay.
So let's give an example. Somebody goes and rides a mountain bike, and people in BMX are like, oh, they're culture vultures and they're stealing BMX riders and whatever they want to say, and they say it as if this person should take their perspective and their thoughts and ideas about this and implement them into their life and what they do. So let me get this straight. What you're saying, and I'll use myself as an example, is that when you leave that comment telling me that I should cut my hair, that I should cut my hair and deal with the cut hair that I did just because you don't like it in your life, when you don't even have to deal with it other than if you click on a video of mine. Like, that's essentially what we're talking about with this whole conversation.
How old are you, by the way? 27?
I just turned 29.
29. Okay. Well, if you ever feel like those types of comments, like the hair one, that actually does exist. You're 29 and you're not bald. If I were you, I'd grow that hair out as long as I fucking want.
I know. I don't want to do that because I get my hair cut and it looks like an entire head of hair came off of my head.
But isn't it crazy? Like, we get those comments on the Bloom as well. Not a lot. There's always the one few negative comments, but it's always like a hidden profile. Like, there's nothing on it, or it's like a guy with like just his cats or something like that that doesn't ride. You know, it's.
There are definitely riders who say these things too, though. They just don't do it on the internet. They just do it in person.
Do it in person, then. Honestly, like when I see these comments online, I'm just like, if you got to meet this person in real life, like the pro that you're shitting on, you would not see these things because he or she is like badass and cool and kind, and they want to talk to you and give you their time, and you're bitching about some shit that you saw that you don't disagree with or agree with for some reason.
Yeah,
like, you're bored. Get out. Do something.
Yeah, literally, that's another aspect of it. Like, why do you have time, or why are you devoting time in your life to saying the things that, like you act? That's coming back to, like, you're acting like this person should care what you have to say so much that it should affect their life. And another thing that I feel like I've been waiting on a chance to say this for a long time, and I may have said it before, but like the conversation of I need to just make a video about it, but the conversation of people are saying like, oh, you shouldn't be using BMX to make money or making money off of BMX. The distinction that needs to be made here is someone, the example people always give is Nigel Sylvester, or you could even say people would give that example with Brad Sims now, because he's like working so far outside of BMX with what he's doing. And the difference is, or not the difference is, there is a difference between making money off of BMX and the BMX industry and making money using the skill of BMX that you've learned as a tool to be valuable to whoever's deciding to pay you. And when people say you're making money off of BMX, what you should be looking at is the people who suck at being a professional rider, who's getting paid by the company to not do their job because they suck at being a real like professional rider and being that essentially billboard for the company.
I mean, like, do you want a rider to be paid like however much for doing nothing, or do you want a rider to actually like putting himself out there and doing the work and going to contests and being paid properly? You know, like what's your mindset on that?
You shouldn't make money off of BMX. You shouldn't want to make money from BMX. It's like, it's such a dumb thought to have, and so backwards, because there is people in BMX who are making money off of the industry who are not like exactly, I don't know, who I feel like aren't I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. You get it. You get it.
I get it.
They're not putting in the work to get what, like, they're not returning on that investment from BMX as an industry.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm there's definitely individuals I'm like, they're still on that team. Are they getting paid, or is it just like for the namesake?
But then it's the same time, real quick, it's the same time. Someone like Van Homan, for example, should never have to work a day in his life. Like, because
the impact he's made in BMX. Legend.
Yes. If he made enough money to live the rest of his life and all his bills would be paid, and it came directly from the BMX industry, I don't think anyone, like, there's people like that exist within BMX.
Well, to go to add on to that point too, like, Van's put his body on the line for years for the growth of BMX. He's inspired I don't want to say millions, because there's a lot of people in the world.
Oh, we've got a response.
Oh boy.
They're abusing the fun in the art of the sport. Have fun saying that while you're at work tomorrow, because that's the concept I believe in with it. If you have the ability to use this skill that you've developed over 10, 15, 20 years, however long it might be, that is BMX, to have fun riding your bike and make money from it, I think the person saying that is the person with the problem, because it sounds like that person who's getting paid to do it is doing just fine.
So the comment was that the issue is that they're abusing the fun of the sport?
The fun and art of the sport.
Well, but that can be interpreted in different ways. So a rider who competes at like a UCI event, who is having fun being in the gym and competing at these competitions, that's fun for them. And if they can make money off of it and be able to afford like their meals and travel, and especially with plane tickets these days, it's a lot of money. Like, why is that a bad thing? They're putting their bodies on the line. Look at athletes who got in accidents and now they can't ride anymore. Thank goodness they had a lot of money come their way when they were at their peak, because or else they'd be just messed up now. And I don't know, imagining the worst, on drugs, in the freaking ditch, not riding their bike, like these riders are these riders who are taking in the money, they're putting their bodies on the line, and they're inspiring the next generation. They deserve this. They deserve to have some sort of nest egg to like have something when they retire. And to add to that point, on top of that, Morgan Wade did an interview with our BMX not too long ago, and he even said that he regretted not taking a corporate company sponsor, because that would have been financially better for him, because he was worried, not to quote him specifically, but what the community was thinking. So he stayed with like a smaller core BMX company, which is admirable for sure. But I mean, he could have been better in the long run if he went with his corporate company.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing to even add to that is like if somebody is good enough to compete at contests and win
Hmm.
them and provide for themselves and they aren't having fun doing it, you know what they're doing? They're going to work just like you guys who are bitching
Hmm.
about this. They're
Yeah.
going to work, putting in the work that they have to make the money that supports them. And I think that everybody has their line in the sand for what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And there might be certain things that a larger group of larger amount of people would be like, okay, like that
Hmm.
might be a little too far.
Yeah.
But
Well,
at the end of the day though, it's only the only person who matters in that is the person doing it. And it's also important to note here too, don't forget what you were going to say.
okay.
It's also important to note here too that freedom of speech and expression does exist, and you can say and feel however you want to about something, but just realize at the end of the day that that is your thoughts and feelings about the thing, and they might not matter to the
Yeah.
person. It shouldn't matter to the person who's actually in the shoes.
I think it's important to disagree, but it's definitely weird to see those comments be so aggressive sometimes about their own beliefs and like, selling out and that kind of stuff. I feel it's good to disagree, but it'd be nice to see more constructive disagreements. But my thought that I was thinking of is, when you're in the office and you're arguing with your boss, or some guy didn't send an email right away, it's delaying your job and all that fun office stuff. BMX is at the level right now where the athletes are dealing with that. They got like a difficult coach. They're not receiving their pay on time. That's a common one that we can all relate to.
Mm-hmm.
They put out thousands of dollars, and because the pay is delayed, they may not be able to afford the next event, or do they take that risk of going to that event? The life of an athlete, um, as glamorous as it looks from our seats right now, it can be a really stressful situation that I'm not amenable, to be honest. When I was younger, I was like, it'd be really cool to be a pro and travel and like get things paid and covered for. But um, sorry, my my dog just entered the room. But it's a very stressful position, and I think people don't realize that. And I will say, just be more compassionate before you're posting stuff like that. You don't know what these individuals are going through, because not only are they dealing with like a crappy boss or late payment, they're also dealing with like frickin' private message Joe and his like negative comments who you don't know. It's a lot that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm done with the negative soapbox.
Yeah, that's why I love you. You're so positive, and I wish people like um more people knew about you. I mean, I think you're pretty big anyways, but like I love the fact that you're the corner of BMX that's positive. You're able to view situations in a constructive manner, and every time there's a blow up in the BMX drama world, like I love the fact that you actually take your piece on it, and I always agree with it. So yeah.
I am of the side of being reasonable about
Yeah.
things and just looking at both sides of anything. And I've felt for a long time, ever since I heard this saying, if you can't argue the opposite side of your opinion on anything, you have no right to your opinion on that thing.
Yep, I
So
agree.
I just look at everything that way and say, like, if this situation comes up and I can't argue the other side of it, well, then I need to figure out how to
Yeah.
argue the other side of it and think about that before I even think about talking about it.
It can be a curse too, like especially like for me, I'm like that as well. I always look at both sides. I get both sides, and sometimes it's hard to come to a decision. I think often enough it's probably difficult to talk to me about that, because I won't agree with you, but I
Mm-hmm.
won't disagree with you either.
Yeah.
It's a Canadian thing, I guess. I don't know.
You haven't said a boot or a one time yet.
Um, about it's not something I say often. A boot. I do throw the A often
There's a
though.
guy who is in Canada for the tractor company that I work at who He develops products, and he has to come down here a lot to like bring product down instead of just shipping it. And and he says a lot, and it's so good. I love it.
It's just so natural. Like, I don't know. I'm surprised I haven't said it during this whole thing, actually.
You might have, and I just didn't realize it. So let's talk about Canada.
Okay.
Actually, first let's talk about who is the lady BMX shredder that is like the legend of Canada. Is there one?
No.
Oh, listen, Canadians.
Canada is developing still in competition BMX riders, at least. We've got a really great core of riders, though, but I always joke that Canada's always a decade behind the US, so hopefully we'll have that. They've actually started to look into expanding the BMX world in Cycling Canada. They recently had like a job posting for it, for the coach.
Oh, I think I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, apparently someone from the UK applied for it, which is pretty cool, so we'll see. There's, coach position. There's a judge position that I applied for as well. I originally wanted to be a UCI judge.
Yeah.
Before things blew up with the Bloom, but after going to my first Beast competition, I'm really glad that.
No kidding.
It didn't go anywhere with it. Not for the judging aspect, but for the fact that the judges can't talk to the athletes really, or like engage with them because, here's a 20, give me an extra point kind of thing.
Obvious reasons.
Not like that happening, but they're just so like not in the space, and unfortunately for women's BMX in Canada, a lot of our girls, unfortunately, who had competed in Beast, they've either gone to mountain biking, specifically full time, had to work a full time job.
Yeah. Because
there's no funding.
Oh,
and they can't
weird.
afford.
I wonder where that comes from.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is the reality of it. There's no funding right now for Canadian athletes. And because of that, you can't keep putting out thousands of dollars every couple months because flights are like, what, $4,000 now to go to like overseas. Like,
jeez.
My one friend, there was no funding. It wasn't worth her going anymore. The stress of like competing as well was always too much. And like, at least if you're dealing with the stress of competing and not have to deal with the stress of finances, at least that keeps you going a little bit longer and compete. It was still fun for her, but it was just a struggle that like she had to worry about her paycheck because she may not have one because she's competing and overseas for weeks at a time.
That's
like,
rough.
Office people, you have like what, 2 to 3 weeks off a year. That's one competition out of the cycle.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then we've got some girls that are beginning. There's a new surgence of little shredders, but nothing right now that I'm seeing that I'm keeping my eye on. But again, we're always a decade behind the US, so we'll probably see some girls soon.
So the female Jay Miron is like hiding somewhere yet to be found, and in the stages of just waiting to be
somewhere. But for the dudes though, they're killing it. I would assume that they're probably not doing so great financially. Like I don't think Cycling Canada has like a program. And no, they do have a program like USA Cycling. Like if you hit like a certain tier, like if you podium, you get this much. But none of our guys have podium yet, so I would assume they're doing this all out of their pockets.
That's crazy.
But the few guys that we do have from Canada, they also, I think, worked or are working for Cirque du Soleil, and that pays really well. So I mean, that's a good marriage where they can train and perform, get paid, and then do competitions as well. So.
Yeah, I feel like BMX riders are really, really, at least the ones who are trying to make things happen that way, are really good at finding the types of jobs and situations where you're able to have the freedom that you need.
Yep.
So how do you feel... Faye Miron.
That'd be sick.
That's funny. How do you feel about the current state of female BMX versus where it was, 5 years ago?
How I feel about it,
Yeah.
I'm consistently blown away every day by how much content there is, how much new talent is building up every day. Like it's actually gone to the point in the last 6 months, I would say, for me to keep up. It's gone to the point where now I can't cover as much racing as I want to, even though I've recently reconnected with it and trying to put in more racing content on our feed and on our website. But there's just so much right now.
Yeah.
So I'm proud to see how far it's come. Um, Thank you, social media gods, for making this happen, because I really think it was social media that's really catapulted everything. The I don't know, 6-year-old kid that's like scrolling the feed is seeing a female rider for the first time and not have to rely on a contest to see that.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's a
there's
really good point.
yeah, so it's a lot easier for BMX as a whole to grow now because of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that one thing that has changed pretty dramatically in just the past couple years is that the majority of larger companies, if not all of them, have a pro level rider that is a female.
And they're still looking. There's a company that reached out to us that was looking for a female rider. I'm like, I don't know who you want, but it's getting to the point now where if you want
Brevity.
an X level rider, you're gonna have to pay the big bucks. I mean, BMX big bucks, but but yeah,
That monopoly
riders like
money.
Bethany, like she's gonna be at that level very soon, and I'm sure there are a lot of companies watching her right now and seeing if she's a good fit. So going back to what I said earlier, it's beyond looking at like your skill level and the tricks that you can do in a contest that you're hitting up, but are you also a good person? And that was a
Mm-hmm.
conversation I had with a brand recently at RadShare, that you have to be the full package. Are you a good person off the bike as well as on it?
Yep.
And are you doing more than just riding your bike? Are you giving back to the community? Are you doing, are you participating in rad share events, for example, and doing something good for a underprivileged kid? And yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, it's grown quite a lot in just the past couple years alone, and it's wild to think about where you're saying like if you're going to get a female rider at a certain level, you're going to have to pay for it, and to think about the fact that Hannah Roberts did not even have a bike sponsor for such a long time, and
Yeah.
she rode for Carl and Nowhere BMX for a little while before she ended up on Hyper, and that's pretty crazy to think about how like in the current environment we're in, you just dream up a rider who's as good as Hannah,
Hmm.
immediately gonna be on a company getting paid instantly.
Yeah,
Was that an
she agrees.
animal?
That was my dog. Yeah, that like for Hannah though, and going back to what I said with the full package, like you need to also be good at marketing yourself as well. And
Yeah.
Hannah has been very vocal about not putting herself online as much as she wants to because of the negative comments.
Mm-hmm.
So your negative comments, whether you think it's very light because it's about your hair, is making an impact on somebody, and it's making a negative impact. Whether or not you know it, or maybe it's not, Brett, but like I just feel like people need to be less shitty. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, for a girl right now, it's not enough to be that token girl anymore.
Yeah.
You really need to be everything if you want to have everything.
You got to work for it.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I think that brings the really truly great people to the top.
Yeah, like Dave Mira. Look at him.
Absolutely.
He was really the first. Obviously, they pioneered it. He was not only just a great athlete, but a great team. And he took photos with fans. They made it feel special. He also had that marketing power as well. And I remember he also had a website and a fan club, like a Patreon equivalence
Oh, interesting.
back then, where
Wow.
you could pay to get like Dave Mira swag. So he was doing it first, and obviously the games and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't think there's a rider right now, male or female, that's doing what he's doing, but he also had that likability. It's just he had everything.
Yeah. Somebody was talking about my hair again. They're just saying how it's not that crazy that we want to talk about it. We're not just talking about it. I specifically mentioned earlier that there's comments of people who are literally just saying cut your hair. Like, either way, I think it's amazing to see where women's BMX is at, and kind of feel like, looking at how BMX as a whole grew, we can kind of get an idea of like what's possible, and maybe even like how much further it can go with the power of the internet that just didn't exist when BMX as a whole is at the level that, like, not necessarily the level, but like the sponsorships and the amount of people who are starting to get hooked up and competing and progression and how fast that's happening when things were at a similar level before. Like, it's cool to be able to look at things that way.
I mean, to throw another quote in, and I feel the show's been nothing but quotes everywhere, but seeing is believing. And because these younger girls can see riders like Charlotte throw up like a 720 like it was nothing, they can see it's possible for them as a female, as a girl, as even binary or and everything in between, that's possible. And I think that's really important. It's interesting. As I get older, I see how more important that is. As a rider growing up, as someone that's Asian, that didn't impact me. Like, I didn't need to see another Asian rider to feel that like this was possible.
Yeah.
I just kind of rode with the dudes, and like, I never thought about my race or anything, but I know how important it is though to have that representation. So we always try, like, from the Bloom too, like when I'm going through feeds and putting something up, I'm trying to put up like different ethnicities and all that stuff, just so that there's variety, because we're at the stage right now in BMX and in women's BMX that there's girls from all over the world, and we need to showcase that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, being just a dude, like, I can't look at things through the same lens, but I can imagine that a 6 to 11-year-old girl watching BMX on TV 10 years ago is less likely to see it and be like, ooh, I want to do that, than if she saw Charlotte riding, or the women's class in the Olympics. Like, there's a very distinct difference there, because you're watching dudes ride. I feel like it's just it's not as natural to make that connection of like, ooh, I want to do that, and there's less people.
For me, like, watching dudes growing up, it always felt out of reach, even though, like, I know obviously if you put the work into it and you build that muscle memory, and that's how I think about tricks right now, like, everything is possible, you just have to throw yourself. But I always felt kind of disconnected watching guys ride that, like, it was very unreachable, but it's not now. Like, we're seeing this generation where these girls like Hannah and Charlotte doing tricks that it felt unreachable when I was younger. But now we're seeing other girls replicating that, and we're going to keep seeing that with the help of social media.
I actually really like this question. Are the girl-specific frame specs really good for girls, or can they get a bike off the rack and ride? That is interesting.
I don't believe please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there's a specifically scientifically proven BMX spec frame. I believe there are frames like the one that Paris did with Colt that specifically is created for her riding style.
Yeah.
But I would love to know if there is, because in mountain biking there are certain frames that are for our center of balance, right? I don't think their BMX has that.
That's interesting. So maybe it hasn't been developed yet. Maybe that there is a spec or a way of balancing a frame with different like types or weights of tubing in the front and the rear that actually does have an impact. But what I would say, like, my first thoughts on this being, like, I think about geometry and I have all these videos about it, is I would say, like, the geometry for a specific thing, like BMX geometry is more than just like person specific, like body specific. It's specific towards the types of things that you want to
Yes.
do on that bike. So like, for example, you want to do a lot of nose manuals and tail whips and you want to spin. You're gonna have, you know, a shorter bike with a steep front end that might have a short rear end on it so that it spins faster, tail whips faster, and you can nose manual, or you can potentially control your balance and nose manual faster. And when it comes to types of riding, I don't think that that would change based on whether it's a dude or a girl riding the bike. But what I you brought up that I think could maybe have an impact is the balancing thing, because not girls have boobs.
Fair enough. No, but I also, I think BMX is so customizable too that you don't need a specific geo frame. But that said, maybe there is a type of geo that would benefit a female rider or a rider with boobs.
It's such a childish thing to laugh at, but it's you said the word boobs.
But like, I think BMX is just so unique too that, well, first of all, I don't think there is enough money in BMX for one company to invest that much time in scientifically figuring out the perfect geo for a female rider. I feel like I want to be canceled soon, but like a rider that has different proportions. I don't think there's the money for that right now, unlike mountain biking where they can do all those tests and make all those different models. But then BMX is so unique, like you said, based on your riding style. Like, look at Corey Walsh. Like, a long back end isn't typically seen in freestyle. It's seen more in racing.
Yeah. It used to be, but not anymore.
Yeah, but now, I mean, it's very uncommon.
Yeah.
In today's day and age. Yeah.
I think that it also, even if there was frames specifically built for women riders, at the end of the day, no matter who's riding the bike, it's gonna come down to feel. And what you would probably see is there would end up being a split of like certain women who like this frame that is just a BMX frame and it's not made for women, and there's some who would like the one that was made for women. And so whenever you really break it down, and at the end of the day, it probably wouldn't be worth the investment of doing it unless it's somebody who works closely with like a American made company where like the person can just like, oh, we just want to try this and see what happens, and then we find out, oh, I do really like the way this feels, and then more people try it, and there it is.
And I mean, to answer that question, like how I would answer that would be that from my experience and seeing other riders do it, you can ride any BMX bike. The geo will enhance what you're trying to do, the proper geo.
Yeah.
But I've had a friend who's like, she's 5'2", and she's riding a 21 inch. She didn't know what she was riding.
Yeah.
And when I found out, I was like, that's way too long for you.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have a hard time bunny hopping like at all at that point.
But she was clearing boxes. Her style of riding didn't do any like street stuff, so like bunny hopping wasn't a need. But like you can ride anything, but the proper geo will make certain things easier, like pulling up and like pulling back and all that stuff. Yeah,
I've experienced that firsthand just in whenever I had at one point a frame that was 21 and a quarter, and I didn't make the connection until after I had it for a long time that like I just not completely, but I pretty much lost my 5 taps on quarter pipes. Like they were like gone, and I was like, what in the hell is wrong with me? I can't do these.
Yeah.
And then one day the realization is like light bulb going off, and you're like, oh, this bike is a lot longer than my old bike or than what fits me, so it's harder to do these things.
Yeah, I've had the same thing with when I was racing. I remember going to the skate park a couple of times just to like change things up, and I just remember thinking like, man, carbing with this bike. I had a it's back there, a Yes frame.
I've never heard of that.
It's a Canadian brand. I rep the Canadian brands always. I try to at least. But I just remember carving on it, feeling like I was like, is it me or is it the bike? And when I finally got the right bike for it, a park frame from Sunday, it felt so much. It was night and day. So you could still do what you want to do, but obviously the right geo is going to make things feel better. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a subjective thing at the end of the day. It's funny because you're actually like dealing with the concept of geometry. Maybe not anymore. Is your package, did it have a frame in it?
my package. What do you mean?
Your Odyssey one that you had to go
Oh,
get.
no, it did not have a frame. No, I'm still rocking the Sunday Discovery frame.
Gotcha.
I love it. It was. So when I quit racing, I retired from it. I decided to go back to the park, and
Mm-hmm.
then I bought a complete Sunday Scout
Yeah.
for 420 from a guy who decided to.
Blaze it.
I know. He decided to quit because bunny hopping was too hard. Legitimately, his words. So it was a fresh bike. It had like the um, collectible seat. There was only 25 made, and so I took that bike basically apart and rebuilt it over time. And yeah, it's pretty much all custom, but with the exception of with a few stock parts that don't make a difference. So.
Yeah.
But thanks to Odyssey, like I had a couple people make comments about how heavy it was. My weight weenie just
You're
just went
developing
off.
your weight weenie.
Well, I had my dudes even being like, "It's your bike's heavy." I'm like, I know. So Odyssey hooked me up recently, and almost didn't make this show. So
Nice. That's
yeah.
sick.
Mhm.
Uh, what was I gonna say? Oh,
Any hard hitting questions in the chat so far?
no, not currently.
Okay, good.
Jay Parrish had to go to bed. Good night.
Hi, Jay.
Um, I think women's BMX is awesome, and seeing things get posted on a daily basis, and even
Yeah.
more so in the types of things that you're doing now that you're doing the Bloom full time.
Well,
It's
there's a
awesome.
lot that I want to post, and there's so much we can, but it's also we have to respect the algorithm gods and all that stuff. But there's so much talent and so much happening, and this year is like a year. This is the year that we should have had in 2020, the year of BMX.
Mm,
Literally every weekend is packed of competitions around the world. Like it's hard for me to keep up, and there's still so many competition results that I can't post yet, or it's past, and there's no point in posting anymore.
yeah,
So even I have to pick and choose where I go, and a lot of it's North American based right now. But um, we had the fortunate, supportive like companies like Vans who have helped us so that we can go to competitions like FIS in France. So yeah,
it's been cool to see and hear about your journey so far in all of this.
thank you.
Um, I'm surprised we've gone through this all so far and haven't talked about the universe yet.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, I'll dive into it quick. When I was going through my anxiety phase of leaving my job, Brant and I had conversations about looking for signs and making sure it's the right decision and all that stuff. And every moment I had an anxiety filled thought, the universe somehow gave me a sign that I recognized because Brent told me to look out for it. And yeah, it just kind of gave me the confidence to keep moving in that direction. So, like, for example, worrying about money,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big thing, which is a big thing that a lot of people don't pursue their dreams because of finances.
Yeah.
I think you and I had a conversation the one night, and the next day I received the government check that was like for $400. And I was like, okay, that's a sign I'll be okay.
And then
So,
there was that email that you got uh, with
email.
the email address that was we were talking about luck, and it was like Lucky Financial or something crazy
Yes,
like that.
just
You were talking about money, and we were talking about luck.
yeah, it's just little things like that. I honestly feel there are days when I feel like, um, did I hit my head?
Mm-hmm.
Because things have been good, and I'm able to do what I want to do. You
That
know,
that's all anyone ever
which is
wants, right?
crazy. Yeah.
So I was thinking earlier when we were talking about the quitting job thing and then talking about
Okay.
life circumstances, all of that. So having lived it for a few
Uh-huh.
months now,
Uh-huh.
and knowing that there's people who might hear this that are in a similar situation, what do you tell that person? What do they need to have in order before they pull a U and quit their job?
Um, See, how I operate is that I plan everything out in chess moves.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I have things in place. So for me, it was moving home uh, 3 months in advance before even making this decision. Having a nest egg, like it depends. Like for me, because I'm a worried, and I just want to be prepared. Like having money saved, and then luckily, I still had that money saved. Like it hasn't been dipped in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important. And honestly, other than that, like I had anxiety about not being good enough to do this. And I really had to just squash those feelings and just know that, you know what, a lot of people with less experience and abilities have achieved great things. And it's kind of like, I'm not to say it's like raising kids, but every parent's always like, there's no manual for it. You just have to learn as you go. And that's a big
Mm-hmm.
part of becoming a freelancer and being your own boss as well. Um, but I really don't have any other advice other than if you feel that it's important to you and it's serving maybe a cause beyond just satisfying your own needs, then maybe it's worth diving into it deeply and sending it. So yeah,
I would agree with that.
yeah.
Let's see. Is there anything else in the women's BMX world that we should have talked about and didn't yet?
I don't know. Let's see if are there any comments about
No.
anything we should talk about?
No. Who are the up and coming riders that people should be paying attention to?
Um, Aubrey for sure.
Yeah.
Even though I feel that she's gotten a lot of great attention so far, I'm scared to see where she might end up. She might be the first. I think I'm willing to bet that she might be the first female or women shredder to hit a mill one day for followers, because I think right now we don't have anyone, and the only athlete I could think of is Mariana Pajol. She's in racing, and she was the first girl that I saw with 1 million followers.
I don't even know how many dude BMX riders have 1 million. Are there any?
She is huge in Colombia. I don't know if there are any dudes with a mill.
I don't know either. Very few, if so.
Yeah.
At least on Instagram.
Hmm. Yeah. So I like to see that. Other than that, I think Iveta, who's 16, from Czech Republic, that's a girl you gotta keep an eye on. She's at that age where you don't have a lot of fears or you overthink. I think that's one of the issues that we have as girls, that we overthink everything,
Mm-hmm.
on the bike and off, and that holds us back. And Iveta is, I think, an individual who has that off right now, and she's learning fast. Um, Kier Sterling,
Oh yeah.
yep, that's another one to watch out for. And I think we're going to see a huge surgence in Asia because the Japanese riders, the Chinese riders, they're blowing up. There's a big BMX culture over there.
How do you handle that being English is not like
Uh-huh.
the right word I want to use because it could mean multiple things, but
Okay.
a English speaking website and
Hmm.
primarily English focused like content and things that you post, how do you deal with riders like underground, I guess you could say, riders from Asia who
Yeah.
like, how does that work?
Well, I mean, luckily we've got Google Translator, so that's been a huge help. And actually, I don't know if you noticed, but like the translation's been really good. Like it's picking up slang now and it's able to
Okay.
translate it in slang. But I, I I'm doing more and more interviews like every day from with girls who don't speak English. That's not their first language, and honestly, often enough, I'm encouraging them to write or speak in their language because then it's also helping a fellow female writer or any writer from that country to be able to pick up on the content.
Yeah.
So I think it's really
Interesting.
important to embrace your own like language for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. It just made me curious of how you navigate the world of like figuring out these up and coming people and discovering them whenever they're in a country half or all the way across the world and don't speak the same language, and that's got to be difficult.
Again, social media has been a huge help because when I send a message to a girl that's in China, for example, and I want to hit her up for like an interview, on her end, she's able to translate that. So it's made it a lot easier to connect with these girls.
Yeah, I guess the writing probably does most of the talking too. It's pretty
Yep.
easy to see a person doing a trick and be like, oh, they're really good.
Yeah. Let's get to know her more. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Uh, there's something that kept coming into my mind that I kept forgetting to mention every time we were talking about the impact of
Okay.
like women's BMX, the Olympics, and all these things. Did you see the video that Britain Cycling, I think,
Okay.
made? I think that was it, with
With
Charlotte.
Charlotte?
Yes,
Yes.
the
And the
video and the
girl.
girl. That
Yeah.
that video summed up my feelings about why BMX is like one of the most amazing things ever
Yeah.
in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's an incredible video, and for anyone
I
who hadn't seen it, I should probably explain too like what it actually is.
mhm.
So Charlotte won the Olympics, and it shows that on TV, and it's this girl watching, and so then later the next thing we see is this girl on a bike trying to ride and things, and then I think it might cut back to Charlotte too a couple different times,
Mhm. Mhm.
but we see the progression of this girl like starting to learn tricks and getting better, and then what it ultimately leads up to in the end is the girl who's watching Charlotte on TV is at a skate park and crashes, and the person who comes to help her up is Charlotte. And I
Yeah.
got goosebumps explaining that, just because like that is what separates BMX from most other things that exist.
Yeah. That's the crazy part. And that's why I'm just kind of like in shock when you see shitty comments.
Mm-hmm.
Like BMX is a small world.
Mm-hmm.
You can easily see the pro that you're shitting on at your local skate park.
Yeah, it can
Maybe
happen.
unlikely at certain skate parks, but I mean it's a small world and like yeah. But going back to that, it was essentially a British cycling commercial, but it was beautifully done.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is incredible. I don't know who had that concept. Like it almost feels like it had to have been a BMX rider who would have come up with that, or a
Yeah.
skateboarder, or somebody who participates in an activity that's similar to that.
Mhm.
And I think that it's just part of what makes BMX as awesome as it is.
I will say I wish I had that growing up. I wish I had that experience of
Mm-hmm.
like seeing a girl on TV and then meeting her in person. I mean, I did have it with Nina, but you know, Nina, Stacy, and Corey, it's not like they were invited to the X Games, which was the commercial
Yeah.
competition at the time. But I respected them for the fact that they were not only killing it, but they were my idols because they were the only like other like girl rider that I can kind of look up to, you know. But
Yeah.
I think with the Bloom BMX, I think that's what we're trying to achieve is um, both Angie and I are trying to give something that we didn't have growing up, which is a platform that a young girl can be inspired by, a support system, and also a resource too. So we're kind of like, I don't know. I'm getting to the point where maybe I'm like, just, I'm not going to have kids. I'm just trying to like fulfill that motherly part by like raising the next generation by looking out for them.
You're being the world's BMX mom for lady
No,
BMX
the
riders.
cool ants. Let's go with that. The cool
Ooh, there
ants.
you
Yeah.
go. Ants
Yeah.
can still have kids and families and whatever they want. That is funny. And I guess with this question that came in here, we can't have a conversation about women's BMX without talking about the girl who tried to jump that monster double at Swamp Fest and landed in the flat bottom, aka Jocelyn
Oh
Camara.
yeah.
Who
I still haven't met met this girl, but we've spoken. We've had like good her talks
She
on social media.
sends it harder than most people ever should send it, and
Yeah.
does things that when I'm watching them, I'm like, I don't know how you're doing this right now.
Um, yeah, it's just amazing as a whole. Like one, sending it; two, sending it in an environment where it's not prime. It's not like you're doing it in a temperature like sealed park, and there aren't splinters being poked out of every ramp. Like she's ballsy for
You can
sure.
take that a step further than that, even in that
Mm.
the people who were making that jump were
Yeah,
getting hauled in by some sort of two-wheeled motorized thing and then pedaling
yeah,
as hard as they possibly can and still barely making it.
yeah.
And then here you have her getting hauled in and like clearly did not have enough speed, but
Hmm.
and got hauled in so many times and then still went for it. Like, is I mean, she's got bigger balls than most dudes.
I envy her mentality for sure, because for me it'd be like, do I want to do this? Am I gonna get it the first try? Like I'm gonna overthink stuff. She just sends it, which makes
Mm-hmm.
her special. Yeah.
Oh, I've been around when she's just sending it, like at Ray's trying the curve wall ride. There is no like standing there for 2 hours, like, all right, I'm working up to it. No, it's all right, I'm setting my phone up, pushing record, think about it for a second. Okay, go.
Yeah,
Crash, go.
yeah,
Crash, go. Crash, go.
and that jump, like you have to go. There's no half-assing it. You gotta
Mm,
just send it fully
yeah,
and hope it
so
works.
yeah, definitely deserves a gigantic like head nod of the head. What is it? Tip of the hat.
Tip of the hat, yeah.
Like, holy cow! Most people don't send it that hard. So there's that. That being said, we're hitting 2 hours here, and I gotta wake
Oh
up at
wow.
3:30 in the morning.
Oh my
So
god.
give me your last words of wisdom when it comes to women's BMX in the future.
Oh my god, I have nothing.
Or okay, in general,
I've given you
in
like three
general,
quotes already.
in
Um,
general, what are
in
you,
general,
words of wisdom you follow in life in general that you can lead people on?
I just had to go back to Steve Jobs quote.
Yeah.
That's the best one. And that goes with writing as well. Like if you look into the mirror and you don't like what you're seeing, it's time to make a change. That's the only thing I can think of for
Absolutely.
life advice. Yeah.
So
Easier
where
said than done.
you're right, you're right. But there are small things that you can do no matter what or where you're at in life. Um, where can people find you and the Bloom?
You can find me on Instagram at BEABMX. And then the Bloom, we're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and
YouTube.
YouTube. I just started doing that a couple of days ago or a couple of weeks ago, and we're just going to try to do as much content as possible on our website as well, which is thebluebmx.com, and all the links to all the socials are there. But we're primarily dominant in Instagram, and we're trying to be more dominant in YouTube.
Yes. And what can we expect moving forward from the Bloom?
Definitely more in-person content, because that's that's the reason why we created the YouTube channel, is because we wanted a place to actually put all those contests that the women are doing
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in a space that you can go to and it's all there. So definitely more in-person events. We're going to be doing definitely more events to give back to the community as well, and not just, I wouldn't say taking, but obviously before we were just taking interviews and showing them to the world, but now we're
Mm-hmm.
actually able to do more and like hold jams and do things like Bloom Week at Woodward, where we're raising the next generation of riders. So definitely more hands-on stuff, more cool art stuff, motherly things,
Having a
raising the next
dedicated
generation.
ramp at a event coming up. I don't want to say
Yeah.
specifics in case you're not
Oh yeah.
allowed, but that is a
No.
thing.
It's been, yeah. That was a huge milestone moment. That made me just realize that quitting my job was the best thing ever. But at Waffle Cup, which is next week in Huntington Beach, Cult the Bloom BMX and Radshare had the opportunity to build a feature on the course, and our feature is right smack in the middle. Yeah, the theme of the event was about protecting the ocean and to create a feature that represented that and cleaning up the ocean as well. So Cult's doing their thing, Radshare's doing their thing, and I had the idea of doing a lifeguard house. It was the first thing I noticed on my trip to California. So I just really felt that represented what we're doing, which is looking out for the community and doing what we can to uplift it, pull it out from the water, raise it,
Yes.
all of those metaphorical stuff. But
Yes.
yeah, the idea came pretty quickly. So I did the concept, and then Angie's doing the coloring right now. She's trying to figure out like what's the best design on it. And yeah, that's next week. Super excited about it. And that's Waffle Cup next weekend.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. And
thanks for letting me plug that.
we'll do this again one day and just talk about whatever we feel like it, since we've had the Bloom conversation, and just update on whatever we want to.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Check her out, check them out, and we'll see you tomorrow for another video. Goodbye.
Bye.